This is a Dateline undercover story with Keith Morrison. Imagine your way, if you can, one man's struggle with identity. A concept not alien to most of us, but ambiguous to a select few. This is Michael Schisler, white, all-American college student. A simple man with simple dreams. But what is a man without his identity? Tonight, we investigate why and how this tragedy unfolded. What could cause this moose to stray away from the herd? Moose don't travel in herds? Dateline investigates why this jackass warrants his own special. So, who are you? I'm Michael, a college student at San Francisco State. I'm an animator and a cartoonist. Boring. What is your identity? That's kind of a broad question. What do you mean? Don't play games with me. Clearly, talking with Michael wasn't getting us anywhere. We turned to burned-out rocker Billy Idol for the answer. Billy, who is this man? I've never heard of him. But what can you tell us about him? Well, he looks kind of like a Jew to me. Michael Schisler? A Jew? How deep does this rabbit hole go? Are you Jewish? No. Are you sure? Yes. What is your ethnic background? Scots-Irish and German and Italian, mostly. Ooh, really? Yes. Ah. Why doesn't he know who he is? Was he struck with a bout of explosive amnesia? Or perhaps just a bout of explosive change? How did your family get from Italy to the United States? My grandfather was an engineer in the U.S. Army during World War II, and while he was in Naples, he met my grandmother. They fell in love, and he wanted to bring her back to the States with him. During a bombing raid, he took some shrapnel in the neck and was sent back to the U.S. prematurely. Ah. He would send my grandmother letters asking her to come, but her father kept them from her, and after a couple of years she found out and responded, saying that she would go. As you can imagine, she was furious with my great-grandfather. Intriguing. Anyway, the family took a ship over and lived in Key West with my grandfather. And however did they get here from Kokomo? Key West. Kanye West? Michael's parents met in high school, and his mother moved to the West Coast to go to Stanford. Stanford, eh? Must be pretty tough shoes to fill. Yeah. Well, I'm sure your father went to Penn. Ouch. Well, at least your sister goes to Yale. Oh. And what did you say you were majoring in? Cartoons? So we can clearly label him as the loser of the family. But what else does he have to say for himself? Well, I wouldn't say I'm a loser. Your words, not mine. So, would you say your identity is as an American? Yeah, absolutely. If I have to label myself on a national scale, I'm so far removed from any other country that it only makes sense that I'm American. The only problem is that most of the time when you label yourself as just American, people claim you're lazy. But my upbringing is the result of a blend of traditions and cultures. I am the result of a genetic orgy of nations, and somewhat of a bastard when it comes to having cultural influence from just one other nation. A bastard resulted from an orgy. How would you say your family life has influenced your identity? Tremendously, I'm sure. It's extremely difficult to think that any part of my personal ethics or morals are entirely without the influence of my parents. Even when I think critically about my own personal identity, it's nearly impossible to think outside of my ethnocentric views and personal belief structure. While my parents and I don't see eye to eye on everything, we do have similar patterns of trying to see things logically and scientifically. I can't decide if I like my parents because they're the way I would want them to be, or because they're my parents. The only ones I'll ever have, and still somewhat infallible in my eyes. The good son. Are you more like Elijah Wood or Macaulay Culkin?
Pass.
And how have you found your Vietnamese American identity?
It was tough. I had to eat a lot of pho and sriracha, but I think I found it. Look, clearly I can only gain so much by studying the specific cultural history of the Vietnamese and its practical application to my daily life being an animator. But what I can really take away is the universal struggle to find one's identity. Instead of looking at the Vietnamese American identity as it literally applies to me, I've taken the concept of applying my own family's cultural past and how American influences affect it, particularly as I'm even a tier further removed from my cultural epicenter than the majority of the case studies seen in my class.
What lies at the end of the tunnel? For Michael, the question of who he is, how he defines his place in society, and the means by which he'll get there are all up to him. He's concluded by saying he hasn't found it yet, and perhaps he never will. However, it is a quest worth pursuing. The definition changes with the growth and development of the human soul, and to have a concrete identity means to shut out new thought. And if he's ever completely satisfied with the definition he's come to, then perhaps it's not a satisfying conclusion at all. I'm Keith Morrison, NBC.